Hi there, Purple Girl here. I harvested these onions about 3 weeks ago and I brought you along for that. So if you're interested in how to know that your onions are ready to harvest and what to do with them when you harvest them, then check out that video. I'll link it below and up here. And now they're sitting here, they've dried out, they've had time to cure really well, and I need to get them ready to actually store away for winter so that I can have onions all winter long. I have the Ailsa Craig variety of onion up here, and there's a few down on the shelf below me here. This is also Ailsa Craig right here. And then I have just a few Valencia. They didn't grow as large or as nice just because they just weren't in a very great place where they were getting a lot of sun and that. So a little bit smaller, but still give me a chance to try that variety. Both of these varieties are new varieties for me that I have not grown before, but they're both supposed to be pretty decent for storing for at least short term. And I find that usually most onions, even the sweeter onions that aren't supposed to store very long, store quite well for me. So something to keep in mind when storing onions is you want to have them in an ideally 10 degrees type location. You can go either way on that for one or a few degrees, so that's in Celsius. And you want it to be somewhere that's dry and dark, and you want to have good air circulation around your onions. So I like to store them in either like a wire basket or a bag. If you're going to store it in a bag and hang it up, then it's best not to have it hung against a wall. Have it hanging from like rafters so it's open with air all around it. If you have it in a bag like this, or sorry, if you have it in a basket like this, then you can, there's lots of air circulation all the way around usually. So again, as long as you don't have it like jammed up against a wall or lots of other things piled up around it, it should get good air circulation and they should be fine like this. I'm going to be taking my onions today and I'm going to be getting them prepped and ready for long-term storage. They've already been out here drying for 3 weeks. You can see the tops are completely dried off now. The skins are starting to get quite dry and want to fall away. It's not ideal that they've dried out that much up there, but there's still a protective layer of skin on there, so that's fine. So now what I'm going to do is I just like to come and cut them. I usually cut them just about there, and I'm going to cut the roots off. Now it's nice and clean. There wasn't a bunch of dirt clinging. If there's dirt clinging, you could just gently wipe that off, and you have the top there. And then you just want to put it in whatever you're storing it in. You want to try and keep the larger onions to store for the longest term. This is a very loose wrapper, so I'm going to take it off, but you don't want to remove a lot of that loose paper. But that one was just barely hanging on. So they're again nice and clean. So the larger onions will store longer, so you want to keep them closer to the bottom of your pile and then use the smaller onions first, as well as if you have any onions that were damaged either from something environmental like an animal getting to it or something, or if you maybe damaged it if you were using like a digging fork or something, then you kind of gave it a little poke or something with that, then you would want to use those first. So I'm just going through the Ailsa Craigs. I'm going to cut those tops off, remove the very loose wrappers, but I'm going to try and leave as much wrapper intact as I can, remove the roots, brush off any clinging dirt, because that just welcomes in any extra organisms and bacteria and whatnot. And then I'll put those in my basket first. And then I'll go through and grab the smaller ones and put them closer to the top of the basket so that they get used first. My soil was pretty dry when I harvested my onions, and so I don't have a lot of dirt left clinging to them. Sometimes if it was a little bit muddy out for whatever reason when you did your harvest, then you might need a soft brush, like even a clean paintbrush or Just a very soft bristle brush just to give a gentle wipe to help get some of that clinging dirt off. But otherwise, usually it won't be an issue. Now you see I just had one fall off my rack here. That's not ideal. The more they get bumped and banged around, the more chances of having the onions not last as long. So try to keep them from getting banged and bruised and dropped is ideal, but of course these things do happen, and don't think it's the end of the world and now your onion's no good. I'll still stick it in the basket. I'm going to still stick it to the bottom of the basket. It doesn't have a big soft spot or anything on it, so it should be fine. This one I cut a little bit deep, and I don't know if you can tell, but it has some moisture at the edge here. So I cut past the dried off part and into the moist area of the stem. So I'm going to set this one to the side. I'll use it first because there's more chance that this one's going to spoil faster. And now I'm just going to get to trimming these all up and getting them ready to store. So this onion here, you can see there's been some damage to it, either from me hitting it when I harvested it, or maybe some slugs or something tried to have a little nibble of it when it was in the ground. I'm not sure, but so this one I'll also set to the side because it won't last as long with that damage. There's the mess that I cut off the onions. And there's one basket of onions. And two. So here's the two baskets of onions that I was able to harvest. I have a couple that either, like I said, this one I showed you, it looks like something tried to chew into it while it was in the ground. And a couple, I just cut the stems just a little close. This must be the other one. So they're just a little bit into the fresh stuff. They're not just at the dried area. So you can see the difference there. This one, it's all dry at the end there, and this one's quite fresh looking. So that'll not last as long in storage. So we'll want to use that sooner. And one of these I poked. Started to fall off the shelf, and I reached out to grab it. I was holding my little snips in my hand and I actually poked into it. It was a tiny little poke, but I thought I'll put it to the side too. This one I'm actually going to trash. It has, I'm not sure what was living in there. I can't tell if the camera's focusing, but there's like some sort of little tunneling going on, and this one like smells bad. So it's going to go in with all the other debris to go in the compost. I do have a couple here that grew kind of odd. These are the Valencias here. You see how they have this big whoop on the edge, and I thought there was just like, I thought maybe they tried to split and start to flower, and I was kind of pulling them apart to see what was happening, but it doesn't look like there's any actual, I'm not sure why they grew out kind of crazy shaped like that. There was two. No, I can't see the other one. Maybe it was that one that I put out. Oh, it was this one that has the damage in it. So this one doesn't look though like it was damaged, though. It kind of has a smell to it too. So I think I'm just going to get rid of this just to be on the safe side. It's actually a little bit soft over here, so maybe there is, if I peeled into it, maybe there is some sort of damage inside, because that's really odd that they both grew kind of funny like that. And the skin is just kind of different right in here. So I'm going to get rid of this one as well. Otherwise, they look good. The Valencias, some of them are really tiny, but this will work fine. You know, throw it in a little bit of scrambled eggs or something. Just a nice little size for that. But those will definitely get used first, those smaller onions. And like I said, I sorted the Ailsa Craig from largest to smallest, the smallest on top and easy to grab first. I'm just going to take these couple of Ailsa Craig that either were damaged or just cut a little bit short, and I'm going to put them on the pot with the Valencia, and those will be the basket that I just used first. So, like I said, cool, dark place for storage. I usually put them in my basement this time of year, as it's September right now. It's still quite warm out. And then once our heating system comes on in the house, I will actually take these and put them out in my garage. It tends to stay cool. It's a little bit more humid probably than they would like, but they do still usually last quite well for me. Out in the garage, we do have, it's an insulated garage with a heater that we just keep really low, so it's usually around that like 10 degrees Celsius mark. So it works well for storing things out there. And usually my onions can last me most, if not all, of the winter. If your onions start to sprout in storage, that's not the end of the world. That doesn't mean you have to go and throw them out. So then you just want to, usually they'll get kind of hard in the center if they've started to sprout. So just cut that part out, and most of the onion is still very usable, and it won't affect the flavor or the texture, other than that little spot sometimes gets a little bit harder in the center where the sprout has come from. Otherwise, perfectly usable onion. You do want to look through your onions just like any of your stored produce, you know, once every month or so, and just check for anything that's gotten soft or smells off or has developed a mold on it or anything. And, you know, just make sure you're not causing issues with storing things, because if you have anything that started to go soft or moldy or whatnot, and it's stored in with other things, the whole batch is going to go bad in a matter of time. So that's what I do for my onions to store them over the winter. I hope you found that interesting and informative, and we'll see you next time in the garden. I think I'll be harvesting potatoes soon. So come along and watch for that, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye.